you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the Three Gun Show, episode 35. I am your host, Dave Hartman, and today I have a great interview with accomplished pistol shooter and Three Gun Nation pro, BJ Norris. Before we get into the interview, I want to thank you for downloading and listening to the show. The Three Gun Show is a weekly podcast dedicated to the fastest growing shooting sport, Three Gun. Each week I bring you a new episode featuring an awesome Three Gun athlete, a manufacturer of multi-gun specific products, and sometimes both. Now, if you've listened along in the last couple weeks here, you know that Mo Shaw was on episode 33, and before he came on, he reached out to his sponsor, Seekins Precision, and asked if they wanted to do a giveaway on the show. And they did. They put up a SBA 15 billet upper and lower receiver and a set and a safety worth over $550. Now, last night, the contest ended, and we did a random draw, and Jessica Fisk won. Now, Jessica shared this contest 9 times, which gains her a few extra entries. So for all you gamers out there, that may be how you win in the future. So congratulations, Jessica. I'll be in touch with you on that. Now, in this episode, BJ and I cover everything from his start in shooting USPSA at the age of 11 to Steel Challenge to his current shooting in the Three Gun Nation Pro Series. Links to everything we discuss can be found in the show notes, so just head on over to threegunshow.com/episode 35. And now please join me in welcoming the show, BJ Norris. BJ, thank you for joining me on the Three Gun Show.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I'm looking forward to talking with you and seeing I'm in a hotel room in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now at the IDPA World Championship. So glad I was able to kind of carve out some time, and we got our schedules lined up.
Me too, man. And this is cool because you have like a super diverse background, and I'm interested to talk about it. We've got you know, in a little bit of research I did, 2011, 20 major championship titles, including like Steel Challenge type of stuff. 2013 and 14, Three Gun Nation Pro Series competitor, and you made it to the Rumble on the Range both years. And of course, we saw you on 2015's Three Gun Nation matches this year. So you got a lot going on, man. BJNorris.com, YouTube.com/BJNorris355, Facebook.com/BJ Norris, Instagram.com/BJNorrisMGT, and one of the coolest things you're doing is MyGunTips.com. BJ, man,
yeah,
you're all over the place, man. You're everywhere. This is great. So, you know, when you look at your history, you're a young guy and you've been shooting for a long time. Where did all this start? How did you get into competitive shooting?
So we got into competitive shooting. I guess it was mid to late 2000. My brother saw, I guess at that time it was American Shooter, Jim Scouting show. He saw USPSA Nationals on that and thought, hey, that looks like a pretty fun thing to do. So it just so happened to be that year, the Limited Nationals was kind of local to where we were living at the time in Northern Virginia. It was in East Huntington, Pennsylvania, and I guess it was about 3 hours away or something like that. So we drove up and actually watched the Nationals and, you know, kind of said, this is something, you know, that's pretty fun, looks pretty fun. So he got into it and started shooting. And then about 6 months after that, that's when my dad and I started. And that was late 2000. I've just been shooting ever since.
And how old are you at that point?
At that point, let's see, I was 11.
11? And wow, that's awesome. How old is your brother?
Brother is, 6 years older than me, so that makes him...
he was 17?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. So he dragged you the first match, and then you ended up making a life and a career out of it.
Yep, it's a pretty neat opportunity that I've had in my life, and very, very grateful for it.
Well, so one other thing I know about you from watching the Three Gun Nation television show is that you're a father. Kind of give us an idea of who BJ is off the range.
Well, off the range, I stay pretty darn busy. Working for Free Munitions. I work in the marketing department. I started that about 2 months ago. Prior to that, I worked for myself for a couple of years. But giving, working, I call it going back to work at a grown-up job, has really given my family the unique opportunity, these days that my wife is able to stay home and raise our daughter. And that's something that we've always talked about and really wanted to do. So, for the first year, I was pretty much Mr. Mom and stayed home when I was working for myself. And then we got this opportunity. So, we decided to jump in and take it. As a family, it's definitely an opportunity for the entire family. And we moved up to Lewiston, Idaho from East Texas about 2 months ago now. And it's been an adventure for sure. But, when I'm off the range, I try to be dad as much as I can because, my family is pretty much everything to me.
That's fantastic, man. So I got to ask, when you're up in Lewiston and you're walking around the local spots, are they like, why are you talking funny?
Yeah, I've gotten a little bit of that. It's
you ain't from around here, boy?
Yeah, it's much different than East Texas. The Lewiston Valley, the Lewis Clark Valley, total probably has less than 75,000 people in it. So it's a very small town atmosphere. Everybody knows everybody, and it's a lot of fun. It's been a really neat experience so far. So looking forward to being up there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place to live. The weather's awesome. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a little bit jealous. There's all kinds of amazing outdoor and hunting opportunities in Idaho, and haven't seen any of them. So you have to explore them and tell me which spots I need to visit on my way through.
Yes, I am definitely going to become more of an outdoorsman, living in the mountains and such rather than the piney woods of East Texas, where it's either really hot or bone-chillingly cold because it's still humid.
Right. So you started out in USPSA, BJ, getting back into the gun thing. You started out in USPSA. How long did you stick with that, and then when did you to branch out into like other shooting sports?
I shot USPSA pretty much exclusively up until, I believe it was 2005 when I shot my first Steel Challenge. And I shot that, the first year and fell in love with that sport and, really started training hard with that. And, I pretty much stuck with those two. I dabbled a little bit in the Bianchi Cup in, the late 2000s. And it was really 2012 that's when I branched out into free gun and, really got into that, which has been definitely a fun adventure and takes up quite a bit of my time now.
And so you're still shooting, you're shooting the IDPA. Is it the Nationals this weekend? Is that right?
This weekend, because it's, I don't know if it's the odd year they just do every other year. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this year is actually the World Championship.
World Champion. Okay, so you're shooting the IDPA World Championship this weekend here. So obviously you still stuck to your handgun roots. So what would you say is like the balance these days of handgun versus 3-gun that you attend matches on?
The past couple years has probably been close to 80-20 3-gun. And then this year, with Wilson Combat, I shot a few more pistol matches than the 2 years past. So I've been gone back and shot USPSA Single Stack Nationals, Production Nationals. I shot the IPSC Nationals last weekend. And then, of course, I shot the Bianchi Cup and then also the IDPA Indoor Nationals and the World Championships this weekend. So it's been fun to kind of get back, a little bit to the pistol sports and kind of, going back home, if you will.
Yeah, that is a lot of pistol shooting, a lot of major pistol matches there too. Are you still training for 3-gun?
Yes. So next week, after I get back after this, I'll be heading to West Virginia for the NRA World Shooting Championship, and as a kind of a 2-for-1 deal, they're having the Starlight 3-gun, which is, of course, the continuation of the Crimson Trace 3-gun, in conjunction with the World Championship. So we kind of get a nice 2-for deal on that.
That's awesome. So do you find that all this pistol shooting that you've been doing lately has been helping or hurting your 3-gun game?
You know, I really think it helps. Handguns are definitely the most difficult part, in my opinion. They're the most difficult platform to shoot well. And, you know, if you can shoot a handgun well, chances are you're going to shoot a rifle pretty darn well. You know, the long range is a little bit different, you know, but that's just trying to learn positions and learn a hold. You know, the shotgun is its own kind of thing. But I think, you know, and the past couple of years with the Pro Series especially, you've seen, you know, the guys that are really, really strong with their handgun definitely be able to pick up 3-gun a lot faster. So I think, you know, the handgun focus is still a good thing for 3-gun training.
Now, do you think that that's because there's like more difficult shots in 3-gun on the pistol these days, or do you think it's like a sight picture type thing, driving the gun? You know, what do you think is the determining factor there?
I have to say it's probably all of the above.
Nailed it.
So, you know, having the ability to, a lot of this vision. So, you know, when you put a rifle up there, you know, you're looking through an optic, and, you know, the muzzle rise on 3-gun rifles is, you know, negligible at worst. We'll call it that. You know, the comps and stuff that we're running, you know, allow us to really hammer on the rifle, but you still have to be able to see what you're doing. Well, with a handgun, there's all this stuff you have to be seeing. You have to see the front sight, the rear sight. You have to be able to track the sight and under recoil, you know, do all these different things. So if you have your vision trained to be able to handle that at a high level, then being able to do the other stuff is really pretty easy.
Gotcha. So the vision aspect of it is a big important part. Vision training.
Absolutely. Probably the majority of shooting boils down to vision. If you can see what you're aiming, you know, see the sights that you're trying to aim, and then seeing, you know, the targets that you're trying to hit. If you can see those pretty well, then I said the rest of the other 2 guns become an easier transition.
Now, you mentioned that you've worked for yourself in the past, and I know you've done a lot of training classes. How do you teach that vision piece when you've got a shooter on the range that's that's bought one of your classes and is like, hey man, take me to hero here?
You know, that's really a pretty individualized thing, honestly. You know, when I was teaching a lot, I was doing predominantly one-on-one training. So that allows you to really hone in on what that individual is struggling with, whether it be calling shots or being able to track the sight under recoil. A big thing that I always coach people on, believe it or not, is making sure to buy high quality glasses. The difference for me when I started wearing good glasses versus, you know, the cheapies that you buy at Walmart was actually pretty astounding. It was so much easier to see what's going on downrange, and when you see that, it makes your life a whole bunch easier.
No kidding. So how high end do you have to get on your glasses to get those benefits?
You know, I wear ESS. They're some of the, for me, I'm really happy with them. They're the photochromic version, so they lighten and darken depending on the lighting conditions. And I found the ESS to be very responsive, whereas some of the other ones weren't, where you'd end up, you know, too dark in some cases and not dark enough in others. Whereas I said the ESS are actually pretty good. They're unlike their normal lenses. Their normal lenses are generally made by Oakley, I believe, because they're a subsidiary of Oakley. But their photochromic ones, I believe they told me, were made in Florida by the actual Transition Lenses company. So if there's somebody that knows how to make Transition lenses, it's probably them.
Right. They came up with the name, right?
Yeah. So I've had really good luck with those. ESS, Rudy Project, Oakley. Anything like that is going to give you the clarity that you need. I've seen the Pilla glasses. Those are really, really nice, but I mean, those are like $1,000 for a set of glasses.
Jeez.
So yeah, there's that. If you're wearing prescriptions, I like the Decos. The Deco high wides. They're flat. A lot of times when you put a curve on a prescription lens, unless you're looking dead through the absolute dead center of it, or wherever they put as the optical center of the prescription, you can get some distortion. So the Decos are pretty much a flat lens, so you get a lot better prescription grind from what I've seen.
So when I see a lot of guys that are shooting like precision rifle series, they'll shy away from putting that lens between them and the optic. Do you find that there's any sort of, do you look over your glasses when you're shooting super long range on a 3-gun stage, or do you look through your ESS, or what is that like for you?
For what we're doing in a 3-gun match, I don't think it really matters.
Okay.
I mean, the biggest thing we face is if the lens fogs up. But as far as, putting that extra, piece of optics between our eyes and the scope itself, for us, it's not that big a deal, especially considering we may have just thrown a pistol in a bucket or have to leave the rifle where it is and get up and shoot a pistol, so there's not really an opportunity to take them on and off. Because you definitely want glasses on when you're shooting pistol steel or shotgun steel or anything like that.
Oh, of course. So,
that's it. For us in a 3-gun match, to me, it doesn't really make that big of the difference. But shooting the precision stuff, I can definitely see where they're coming from.
So now, when you're doing those classes with the the individualized care of you're having a problem with shot calling, you're having a problem tracking your sights, how do you make that diagnosis? Is it within like a dialogue or observing the shooter? And then kind of a follow-up question to that would be like, if someone's listening, how can they self-diagnose any sort of like vision problems with shooting?
Well, I usually you can observe the shooter. When you know what you're looking for, you can kind of, it's kind of the mix between looking at where their shots are going on target, what shots in the sequence are going, are they having problems with, and you can even really boil it down to, if you can look at where they're putting the gun in front of their face, you can diagnose quite a few of the problems as well. If you see them and the gun is a little bit below their eyesight, which is pretty common, you can really hone in very quickly just by making sure the gun's in the right spot, is directly in front of their eye, and if they're seeing the sight, if you're seeing the sight go dead low, or if you're seeing the shot go dead low, a lot of times that's an over driving the gun problem, or their recoil spring is too heavy. But that's getting away from the original question, which is how do you self-diagnose? Is what I always tell people is that it's absolutely important that you see the sights when the gun actually fires rather than when you make the decision to fire it. Because there's a gap in time right there. And, a lot of people will see the sights when they make the decision to fire, but then they'll look away or start thinking about something else, doing something else when the gun is actually firing. So that's where you see a lot of people say, well, I just didn't see that one. I didn't call it. Stuff like that is because they saw the sights when they made the decision to fire the gun, but not necessarily when the gun fired.
So how do you correct that behavior? With a big stick? Just whack 'em?
A lot of it boils down to shots put downrange. Dry fire is great for learning a lot of the non-shooting manipulation skills, we'll call them. Draws, loads, things like that. But when it comes to stuff like tracking your sights and calling shots, and the only way to do it is to start putting ammo downrange. The best kind of dry fire is when the gun goes bang, when you're at the range. Obviously not at home, but
right.
That's the most effective. That's what my Robbie Latham has said in the past.
Yeah, and he might have a little bit of knowledge and experience in that area.
He might know how to shoot a pistol. I mean, he's starting to get a little old, but I think he still probably has a handle on it.
Yeah, no kidding. Still young enough to kick your butt, right?
That's right. He's got new knees, so that helps him.
Oh, he's cheating. He's Terminator now.
No, he actually grew half an inch.
Is that right?
Yeah, not kidding. He actually, when he got both knee replacements, he actually grew half an inch.
Oh man, maybe I need to get a couple knee replacements.
I would need about 6 knee replacements to cumulatively come up to an average height.
Yeah, normal Homo sapien of the North Americas.
Yes. I'm not known for my physical stature, I'll put it that way.
Low center of gravity though, right? Helps with recoil.
That's true.
So you have like a physical advantage on people. It's like the opposite of the Shaquille O'Neal type thing. Something like that. High point, kind of the bane of my existence, though. So bringing it back to shooting just for a moment, and then we'll get back on this height thing. So when you go to the range and you put those rounds down range to practice that vision on the front sights, do you prefer to set up stages, or do you have like drills that you do? And if so, are there anything that you can recommend to the audience?
I prefer short drills, simply for two reasons. One is they're a lot more efficient. There are times when it's really good to shoot stages. Don't get me wrong. I love setting stages up for practice. But especially if I'm trying to work on something specific like vision, I really prefer, a short, focused drill. It's a lot more efficient to set up, and it's a lot more efficient to shoot. You can get a lot more rounds down range in a shorter amount of time, and also stay focused on what you're doing. So if you set a stage up and you're trying to work on vision, well, you're also moving in and out of positions, you're doing loads, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing some stuff that is not necessarily focused on what you want to work on. I'm a big proponent of having a plan when you get to the range, of saying, I want to, work on these skills. So if you're shooting a stage, it's harder to hone in on a specific skill. If you're practicing with a group of people, then a lot of times it's better to shoot a stage, because you can kind of get a little bit better feel for times, and you can, try different stage plans and different skill levels, and you can get a lot of the information that way if you got a small group that you're practicing with. But if you're out there with 1 or 2 guys, I prefer drills.
So you mentioned like when you prefer drills like when you want to work on something like vision, for example. So BJ, at your level, do you have like times where you feel like, okay, I've taken a step back in weapons manipulation or recoil management or vision or something like that, and you specifically go to the range to work on that?
Absolutely, all the time.
Yeah.
Can
you give us like a recent example of something that you've been working on?
Well, strong hand weekend is always something I try and work on, especially when you go to IPSC nationals or USPSA nationals or IDPA nationals, any national practical pistol level type match, you can pretty much bet they're going to have some strong hand and weak hand stages. And, so I'll go and I'll set up and I will shoot the same drills that I would normally shoot strong hand and weak hand. So bill drills, you can do an El Prez strong hand, you can do all these different drills, strong hand and weak hand. Maybe you do an El Prez and shoot the first part of the strong hand, load and transfer weak hand, and shoot the second, 6 weak hand only. I don't ever want to be afraid to take a shot. So, whether that's shooting groups or shooting at far distances, I shoot bill drills at, 20 yards because I never want to come up to a stage and be, oh man, that target, that's a little tough. I don't know if I can do that. I never want to be in that position. So I always try and practice, with very difficult shots and difficult targets. And that, I found that really does help match performance. Helps mental management while you're at the match.
So you save the hard shots for practice, and then it looks like a piece of cake when you're at the match.
Absolutely. I mean, when we shot IPSC nationals last weekend, I mean, there were 20 and 30 yard shots all over the place.
But you had practiced those in
exactly
on the practice range, and so you were comfortable with it.
Correct. Your gun's accurate. You're accurate. Everything is good to go. So you go up there and you put the sight on the target, you press the trigger, and you're good. There's no anxiety about a stage.
So another thing that you hit on was having a plan when you go to the range to practice. If you think about like your most recent trip to the range, can you give us an idea, an example of what your practice was, what your plan was for your practice?
Last time I went to the range was for practice. Was actually before the IPSC nationals, so it was a little bit longer interval than what I prefer, since that was almost a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. But I was working on basically what we're talking about right now, which is tracking sights, being comfortable with difficult shots, and strong hand and weak hand. If you're good at those, chances are you're probably going to be okay at a match. Yes, you need to work on shooting on the move, and movement coming in and out of positions. But if you're comfortable shooting, difficult targets, then a lot of times you're gonna end up pretty all right in a match. At least that's always been my experience.
So it's interesting that you didn't have a practice session between the IPSC nationals and the IDPA World Shoot. When you make that transition from a game like IPSC to a game like IDPA to a game like 3-Gun, is there something that you like to do to change that program in your head for, like, I'm shooting this weapon now, or I'm shooting this strategy now, or for example, like I used to shoot production in USPSA, and then I would go to 3-Gun and I would drop a mag that had like 16 rounds in it for no good reason.
Yeah, there's that. A lot of it for me, especially when we talk about the difference between the sports, they all use dramatically different scoring systems. We always ended up, obviously the best shooter wins, but there's dramatically different ways of getting there. We'll call it that. IDPA is time plus, where it's half second per point down. USPSA is the hit factor that takes a mathematician to figure out sometimes. And of course, 3-gun is wide open, 2 hits anywhere, you're good to go until you miss, and then it's like a million seconds for a penalty.
Yeah.
You really don't want to miss in 3-gun.
Really don't want to miss in 3-gun.
But a lot of it boils down to what you deem an acceptable sight picture is for what you're doing. When I'm shooting 3-gun and you only have to have 2 holes in the cardboard, you can have a wider range of what is an acceptable sight picture. You're not worried about shooting 2 Charlie or Charlie Delta, like you are at a USPSA match. As long as there's 2 holes in the cardboard, it doesn't matter. So there's a wider range of what you can accept, and then IPSC and USPSA is kind of in the middle, where depending on the stage, you can run it faster and drop a few more points, or this stage you got to be really accurate on, because the way the hit factor scoring formula works. And then IDPA, which is where I'm at now, a lot of times you find that the shot itself is actually easier or closer, but the scoring system makes it harder because you can't drop hardly any points shooting IDPA, because it's a half second per point down, and you can do a lot of aiming in half a second. So that it really boils down to what is an acceptable sight picture. And, obviously IDPA, you gotta have a much narrower range of what you accept when you're looking at the sights. So, that loops all the way back to what we just talked about, which is vision.
The other thing that pops into my head is that it's got to dramatically affect your stage planning when you're talking about those completely different scoring methods.
Yes. There's times, when you can take risk on positions, or, what shots you would take, or how many extra shots you want to have, in the gun. IDPA, generally, you're going to run the gun empty, so you can reload from slide lock. But, USPSA, you're going to have a little bit different idea of how many rounds you want in the gun, when you load. Maybe, especially if you're shooting production, you might shoot 4 rounds and dump a magazine. So that puts you in a better spot later on in the stage.
Yeah, and I can. So I've never shot IDP myself, but just making the transition between USPSA and 3-gun for me is enough mental management. So at the top of the show, you mentioned that you run many different divisions as well. And so how do you keep all that straight in your head? Do you have like a dry fire indoctrination session before you head out to a match?
A lot of it comes down to experience doing it. And that's kind of, to kind of bring up Steel Challenge at this point. I shot open only for a couple years, and then I started shooting the Steelmaster for the Steelmaster title, which is, of course, the Rimfire gun, or it was at the time. They've changed it up a little bit now. But at that point, up until, I guess it was, last year is when they changed it. It was rimfire pistol, iron sight pistol, and an open score. So you had to go from going 1,000% with an optic sighted 22, to now all of a sudden you gotta, slow down and aim with your iron sight gun, to now you're going, 1,000% again with the optic sighted 9mm. Or, whatever it is. Most people shot 9. I shot 9 because I'm cheap.
It's a good reason.
Yeah. Well, when you shoot 3,000 rounds in a day.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's my record through Steel Challenge practice.
Is that right?
Yes.
3,000 rounds in a day?
Yep.
Holy cow.
I shot like I was mad at it.
Apparently, geez.
But, there was always that apprehension, people who didn't shoot it were like, man, how do you transition back and forth, and how do you handle it? And it comes down to, well, you just got to do it. So the more you switch back and forth to these different guns and the different sports and platforms, and the less it bothers you. At first you're like, oh my God, I can't handle what's going on. There's so much difference. But, at this point, in my career personally, I can pick up a gun, whether it be a 1911 or a Glock, on, the two extreme ends of the spectrum, we'll call them. I've been shooting Berettas a lot lately, so now you have the double action trigger, the Wilson combat guns. It doesn't really bother me. A lot of people have problems transitioning, the different grip angles on the gun. The guns will point straight, up in the air. If you're used to shooting a 1911, a Glock is going to point totally different. But for me, I've transitioned back and forth so much, and I've made it a point to, that it starts to bother you less and less the more you do it. And you can pick up a Glock, or you can pick up a 1911 or a double action gun like the Beretta, and once you've shot it, you can pick it up, and as soon as your hand wraps around the frame, okay, this is this gun. I need to do this. And it just doesn't, I said, for me personally, it just doesn't bother me all that much.
And that says a lot to the experience of starting when you're 11 and shooting everything from here to there. So BJ, I want to ask you about your 3-gun pistol, but I got to give you an anecdote real quick. We were talking about the difference between the 1911 and the Glock. I was at my local range one time, my home range, and there's a guy next to me that had a new toy and wanted to talk about it and show me and everything. And it was a Glock 21, and it had some sort of a beaver tail attachment on the back. This is before they had the Gen 4s. And he's like, yeah, this is great. It's 45, it's a double stack, but it fixes that Glock grip angle problem. And I laughed. I was like, well, there's no problem. Glock is perfection. And he just kind of stared at me and didn't quite know what to say. So that's actually a really interesting. You bring up an interesting point. I actually shoot my 1911s with an arched mainspring housing. Oh, really?
So the Glock grip angle that I'm sure somebody knows what degree it is. I don't. I'm not quite that big of a gun nerd. I like to think I'm a gun nerd, but I know there's guys who are far more gun nerd than I am.
Yeah, I like to consider myself a shooting nerd instead of a gun nerd. But
fair enough.
But
fair enough.
If we have a gun nerd listening, go to BJ's Facebook page, facebook.com/BJ Norris 355, and tell him what that angle is. He'd love to know.
Yeah. So for all of its foreignness, we'll call it that a lot of people experience, with it pointing up in the air, it actually puts your wrist in a pretty good anatomical position to control recoil. Because it pushes your wrist forward. So I use an arched mainspring housing on my 1911s. Of course the normal Beretta grip angle is pretty similar. Versus you can get a Zyrtec 92, which would be, a 1911 like grip angle. But I like shooting the regular ones that have the hump on the back.
It's interesting. So then, BJ, tell us what type of pistol are you shooting in 3-gun competitions these days?
In 3-gun, USPSA production, and I'm shooting it here at IDPA. I'm shooting the Wilson Combat Beretta Brigadier Tactical. So it's the 92 series gun that Bill did in conjunction with Beretta. Is a combination of parts that hasn't been available all together from the factory before. So the closest thing before was the 92 GSD, which they only made a few of. So it's the wide, heavy Brigadier slide, which has the dovetail front sight, so you can put whatever front sight you want on it. And then it's got the rail, so it has a little bit of weight up front. And one of the biggies that it has is the stainless match barrel from Beretta. So my gun, and the same gun I shot at Bianchi Cup, I shot it in production at Bianchi Cup as well. It'll shoot 3 inches at 50 yards.
Wow.
So it's a extremely accurate gun, and the triggers that Wilson is doing on double action, single action are phenomenal. So it's been a lot of fun shooting the Beretta platform. I like it a lot. These guns are the G variants, or they're decockered only, so you don't have to fool with the safety. So that's nice for 3-gun. You know, if you have to hot reholster for any reason, or even just putting it in a bucket, you know, you hit the decocker, it decocks the gun, and you're good to go.
That's pretty cool. So have you shot Berettas for a long time, or is this a new thing for you?
This is a very recent development. I signed on with Wilson Combat in December last year, so December 2014, and I've been shooting with them ever since. And you know, we've been pushing the new platform. They started it back, I believe, in like May or so of 2014. And it's been I absolutely love the gun, and I was never a huge Beretta fan. The triggers were never, you know, all that great. There wasn't a lot of custom parts available. There wasn't hardly any gunsmiths. The locking blocks would break, you know, frequently. But you know, in the past couple of years, I made a lot of improvements to the locking block geometry. And then when Bill started working with them, the guns that he's getting from them are just extremely good quality. And it's a heck of a gun. And
that's cool to hear. You know, I always wanted a Beretta because I saw him on Lethal Weapon.
Right.
Until I actually saw one in person and handled it. I'm like, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah.
But it's cool to hear that there's a lot of improvements being made.
Yes. I mean, it's really, you know, a lot of people, you know, oh, you're shooting a Beretta. Okay. But you know, they've really upped their game, you know, in the past couple of years, especially with this particular platform. It's worth it. And, you know, a lot of people shoot the CZs or the Tanfolios in production. And me personally, I think this is a better option. And, you know, the best part is that it retails for $1,200.
And you can probably find parts and magazines here in the United States with
yes
as well.
You know, parts are no issue for sure. Wilson's making a lot of custom parts now, new springs. So that's what's helped us get the triggers down lower. They're making a new trigger bar that gives a longer arch to the double action. So you actually can run a lighter spring and still get reliable ignition. They've done a lot with the platform. And, you know, when I the first time I shot one, I ran some drills, and then I ran some drills on the SDI, and the results were pretty much identical. So,
that's cool.
You know, after running that, I was like, well, yeah, I can shoot this. You know,
sure, why not?
You know, I was running a 5-inch double action gun at the same speed and hits that I was running a 6-inch STI. So I said at that point, it's like, yeah, this will work.
Yeah, good enough. We'll call it a day.
You know, so it's been fun shooting the gun. I really like a metal frame gun as opposed to a polymer frame gun. Just because I recoil so much straighter, I'll call it. Maybe that's not the right word, but less violently, because the frame isn't twisting in 8 different directions under recoil.
So then, BJ, that covers your handgun setup for 3-gun pretty well. What type of rifle are you working with?
I'm also running Wilson Combat rifle.
Oh, okay.
And, the setup is really pretty much the same as everybody else is running a light and bulk carrier group, reduced gas system, 18-inch barrel. I said all, pretty standard stuff. I'm running the Hogue 3-gun handguard and a Leupold Mark 6 for an optic. So both of those are great products.
What reticle are you running in your Leupold there?
Leupold, I'm actually running the CMRW 2 for the 7.62 caliber. Because I shoot the 77s for my long range, the ballistics are actually closer to the 7.62 than a lot of the 5.56 readings. So.
Oh, cool. So are you shooting like a Freedom Munitions round on your 77 grain, or was that a bad question to ask?
On the on the 77 grain stuff, I'm actually using the Wilson Combat ammo.
Oh, okay.
So Bill, has a line of ammo that is tuned, awesome to work with his rifles and his barrels. And when I got my gun, my match rifle, the gun that I got and said, okay, this one's going to only shoot matches. I'm not going to practice with it because it shot just over half an inch at 200 yards.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So when you start.
Cool that he gives you the ammo choice too. So then you don't have to go around searching for the best thing for your rifle and your barrel and blah, blah, blah.
Right. I mean, when you start talking about an AR that shoots, a quarter to, even half a minute. This one, is around a quarter to a third. That's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So then, to round out the trifecta there, what kind of shotgun are you shooting these days?
I am shooting a Mossberg 930. I've always had good luck with the guns. They come out of the box ready to roll. Just open up the port a little bit, and you're ready to go. I put a Roth tube on it, the exterior tube, just because I wanted the stiffness of the one piece design versus the extension, and the ability to mount an accessory to the tube that's solid instead of having a tube clamp. As far as sights on the gun, I use the XS sights, the Express setup, and it's a little bit different for the Mossberg because they use a hollow rib instead of the solid rib like a Benelli. So we're actually using as a clamp on. The rear sight's actually a clamp on system. We kind of have to custom make to the gun instead of a lot of the other guns are dovetailed in, but they do have the ability to take a barrel and mount the sights to it, and just the regular big dot front. And it's great because it gives a really clean sight picture, even with through the shotgun, which is a little bit odd at times. When you think about a sight picture with a shotgun, but of course we're shooting slugs and things like that. But the great thing is, since the big dot front has a big white circle on it, you basically use it as a big fiber optic bead, and then you cheek the gun a little bit more, and there's that shallow V Express notch, and it gives just an awesome sight picture, very clean and very fast. And it's not, I've seen some pretty crazy stuff with, milling a Bomar into the rib and putting a pistol front sight on it and all this crazy stuff some guys are doing. But for me, that sometimes gets in the way of what I want to see. I want to see the targets. If I'm shooting clays, I don't want to see anything but the targets, and be able to drive the gun to those. And for me, the XS system is great.
Well, that's great. So yeah, the back to that vision thing we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely, everything comes back to vision.
So BJ, I got a question about the one piece X-Rail you were talking about. Now, the the Mossberg has like the gas system that runs along the tube there.
Correct.
Now, does X-Rail make any sort of like accommodations for that? I mean, I know the JM30 is apparently chrome lined in that area, or the JM930 is apparently chrome lined in that area to make it run smoother, longer, etc. Are there any special coatings on that X-Rail?
They use a black nitride coating.
Okay.
So it's the one downside that I have with the black nitride is a little bit tough to see to clean it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would blend in for me.
That's the one downside for me is I have to remember where the gas chamber sits to make sure I scrub in that area because it can be a little tough to see at times. But yeah, they black nitride the tubes, so it still gives that carbon resistance and smoothness and won't gall like a regular stainless tube would.
No, way cool. So then, what type of loading setup do you use for your shotgun?
I do the carbon arms twins system. So right now I'm only loading 2 at a time. I haven't found it to be a hindrance in most cases, and I can do it consistently all day long. Whereas quads, you're still seeing guys throw shells all over the place. For me, loading 2 at a time is extremely consistent. And unless we're doing one of the empty gun starts, which is getting more common now, but, still isn't a huge thing, it really doesn't cost you that much time, over the course of the match. And knowing that I'm going to get 2 shells in the gun every time versus maybe 4, maybe 3, maybe 2, maybe none, is for me, it's kind of a strategic thing. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, especially if you need to do like a mix load where you're swapping from slug to buck to bird or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's when it gets interesting.
Yeah, and then you drop one on the ground and you're like, okay, where was I?
That's when the tube fed guys rejoice.
Yeah.
When you're shooting open against a box fed gun and it's 18 targets of, just birdshot. It's not pretty, but then you throw a couple mixed bird, slugs, buck, a little bit of bird. That's when things get interesting.
Yep. New magazine, rack the round out, go to town. So BJ, we were talking earlier about your training and you mentioned most of it was individualized. You've made a transition in your training of folks to like the complete opposite direction, where it's like anyone in the world now can come and train with you, and that's through myguntips.com, which is your latest venture. And on there you have training videos. Am I right?
That is correct. So I had kind of the idea for my gun tips just sitting around one night, kind of, just, talking to a couple guys, and, there's a lot of really high quality training videos on the market. I'm not saying that mine are better than theirs or anything else, but the difference of what I do is that all of my tips are focused on a single subject. So they're 3 to 5 minutes long that you can go on the website and you can search for it instead of trying to scroll through a 2-hour long DVD or whatever and try and find that piece of information you're looking for. If you're trying to look how to load a shotgun with twins, you don't really care how to load a shotgun with quads and, the belt caddies and all this other stuff. You just want to see how you do strong hand, load 2s. That's all, that's all you want.
That's awesome. So you're like the a la carte of 3-gun training. So, I'm not in the mood for like the blue plate special tonight, but I want a couple tacos and an enchilada. So there it is.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we're doing, we're not just doing competition training anymore. Of course that's my background, so that's where the website started, is competition training, because that was really easy to do. But as we've grown, just recently we started working with Ernest Langdon for a bunch of the defensive tips. So now we're adding, defensive shooting to the mix, and we're going to add some more guys that have different skill sets than Ernest for defensive, and we're going to add some more competition tips from some different instructors. So we're going to have just a huge variety and knowledge library that anybody can log on and have access to. It's, it's cheap. It's $5 a month.
$5 a month, really?
$5 a month.
That's ridiculous. That's nothing.
And
that's like less than a DVD series for an entire year.
Absolutely. It's $5 a month. We release at least,
you should be
at least one new video per week. So there's a consistent and constant flow of content and information.
I've checked out your free teaser videos, and you should definitely be charging more.
I'd like to.
So if you're listening, get in on it now, because he's gonna charge more.
Yeah, that's actually, that kind of brings up a point is, as much as I would love to charge more. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody likes to charge more, $10 a month or $20 a month or whatever. That would be awesome. But at the same time, I want to make sure everybody can access it. I mean, from the guy first starting out that doesn't want to invest a ton of money, into the sport, to, the guy who's really hardcore about it. I want it to be one of those things like, yeah, I want to have that for $5 a month, because what I would pay for something like that, and right in that $5 to $10 range is what I would do. So, that's where I think it should be.
I like that philosophy that making it accessible to everyone. So now I feel like a jerk. Thanks, BJ.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, well, that's really cool, man. So what's, if you're anything like me, you're kind of like a stats nerd, and you probably look at, the most viewed videos on there and everything. What's the most popular, video that you guys have done?
From a pure number standpoint, because it got pushed out on YouTube and pushed all over the place, was probably the, Steel Challenge roundabout video. Just cause I had some crazy runs on roundabout, or right at 2 seconds or right under 2 seconds, something like that. That kind of got pushed out, on the internet. But as far as, regular stuff on the thing, I would have to say a lot of it comes down to I'm looking right now, it's either shooting at slugs or talking about match ammo. I have, a certain thing for me to have match ammo. I either use, new brass or once fired brass that's been fired through my gun. Cause I've been burned on match ammo before. I lost production nationals one year because I had a case head separation with 2 stages to go because I was using range brass.
Oh man.
I was like 30 points ahead and then had a 30-second malfunction.
Oh man, God,
that's kind of a killer.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a killer. Holy cow!
So after that, it's I started making sure I had a system for what match ammo was, and people like that sort of stuff. There's tons of stuff about how to shoot faster, but for me, a lot of it boils down to how do I perform better.
So BJ, it sounds like you've got a lot of projects, a lot of irons in the fire, and things you're up to, especially with your new move to Lewiston. So what's next for you?
Well, like I said, I've got the NRA World Championships coming up, and then soon after that is the Free Gun Nation Nationals, and then the Trigicon Shooting Championship. And then, after that, I'm starting to wind down a little bit through the year. Steel Challenge is in November. And then, after that, it's probably going to be a lot of spending time with the family and getting ready for SHOT Show, which is going to be definitely a huge adventure for me this year because it'll be the first time I'll actually be at SHOT Show truly working for a company instead of, being there and working for myself and helping out in various booths. This will be the first year for me that I'm truly, there working for a company. So that'll be a little bit different. And we've got, quite a few projects coming up in the air, for, 3 Munitions Extreme Bullets, group. So we've got some really cool stuff that's going to be, coming out soon. And then as, a personal project, I'm completely revamping the My Gun Tips website and branding aspect. So that's in progress right now. If you go look at, the website looks pretty good, but it kind of looks like I did it myself. And there's a reason for that, is because I did. Whereas now we've grown to the point where we have a true professional service, redoing the website, redoing the logo. The first revisions look awesome. And we're just getting everything locked down, and hopefully we'll have that going here in the next 30 days, from now. So right around the end of October, 1st of November, hopefully time frame. I'd love to say sooner, but, realistically, just gotta be patient. There's a lot of things we're tuning to make sure when we launch the new site that it's good and perfect and not, okay, well now we gotta go back and tweak this and we gotta do this and it's changes and, we need you to sign up again and all that. No, we're trying very, very hard to make sure when we hit the go button on the new and improved site that it is truly new and improved.
That's great, and that attention to detail will obviously show through to the customer experience there. So I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Absolutely, it's gonna be really neat. So we've got more videos from me, more videos from Ernest, and we're probably gonna bring some other guys on pretty soon as well. So we're gonna have just a huge, knowledge base, huge variety of stuff, and lots of stuff going on there. And look through some cool stuff from Freedom Munitions coming soon too.
Sweet. Well, give us a sneak peek. Tell us about one. Jansen's not going to listen to this. So.
Well, we're one of my one of the things that I'm working with quite a bit in addition to marketing projects is actually load development. So a lot of the new loads coming out this next year, are gonna be, I was the lead on developing them. So, as we expand the competition line and, expand into other product lines, everybody can know that you've got Jansen and I working with, the quality and the engineering departments to have new loads that perform, just incredibly, because we're shooters. And, so we've got a lot of really cool stuff coming, and that's kind of all I can say right now, but we're going to surprise a few people.
Well, I can't wait for that. And, it's a good point you make that, you and Jansen are shooters. And I definitely like that about the companies. They definitely pay attention to the people that are using the product. And, especially with, having you guys on the, on the payroll and giving input on the product. So that's totally cool. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.
Oh yeah, it's coming soon. Coming soon.
Well, BJ, I know you got to get to bed here. You got a couple, stages to shoot out tomorrow, but I got 3 last questions for you.
All right.
If you'll allow.
Absolutely.
All right, bud. So first, can you tell me about your most spectacular disqualification?
Ooh, most spectacular disqualification. Gosh, I don't like to think about those.
I totally understand, and I just realized I asked you that when you're at a match. So
yeah, so
if you want to say, Dave, stuff it and pass, I totally understand.
Yeah, let's pass on that one right now.
Okay. So BJ, tell me where you see the sport of 3-gun headed.
I like to think that the sport of three gun is continuing to grow. With Three Gun Nation still pushing and, the industry taking more and more input from the shooters, as long as we continue to manage things right, the sky's the limit for three gun, in my opinion.
Well, that's great to hear. Now, BJ, if you could leave the audience with just one thought or one piece of advice, what would it be?
I have to say, go out and share the sport. There's tons of people that have pistols and ARs, that go out to the range and just blast with them. We need to get more people, transitioning from being a gun owner to being a shooter. And there's, how are there many gun owners? 80 to 100 million, gun owners in the United States now. But there's far less people who are actually shooters. And that number has grown dramatically in the past 5 years. But, there's still tons of people that have this stuff that need to get out and start shooting it. Not only, just going out and planking on the range, but hey, everybody's got to know that, in competition, everybody has started somewhere. When I started out, I was 11 years old and, I didn't know anything about guns. We never really shot pistols before we started competing. It's not like I grew up from the time that I was, 4 years old or 3 years old or whatever that we always shot. That wasn't the case in my house. When we started competing, that was pretty much when we started, shooting regularly. Dad hunted a little bit, when I was really young and when my siblings were really young, but, it was never, again, he was a gun owner, but we weren't shooters. And when we got into competition, I said, we didn't know anything, but, we asked questions, we did what we could to learn, and we're very fortunate to work with some great people that helped us get started, and, the rest is kind of history. So, that kind of, in a way, that's kind of, circling back to one of the things I like about, myguntips.com is that, I try and make it so, a guy can learn about the sport, learn about competition, learn how to protect, their family. It's really big. So, find somebody who's either not a gun, doesn't own guns, or maybe they're a gun owner but not a shooter, and get them out there to the range and show them just how much fun it is.
That's a fantastic message to end the show on. And I know that there's probably a lot of folks listening to this show that, maybe saw Three Gun Nation, maybe have seen some videos on YouTube, or kind of curious, want to check it out. So that, that's an excellent message for them. It's like, just get out there, and people on the range are totally cool. So just go out, make a friend, and if you're a shooter, bring a friend. That's fantastic, BJ. This has been a lot of fun, man. It was great to get to know you, great to talk to you, and I'm glad we connected.
Absolutely.
And thanks for joining me on Three Gun Show, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Three Gun Nation Pro BJ Norris. Links to everything we talked about can be found in the show notes. So just head over to threegunshow.com/episode 35 and clicky away. If you have any thoughts or feedback or guest suggestions, you can email me. I'm Dave at threegunshow.com. As always, please leave a review on iTunes. A few of you did it last week, and I totally appreciate that. That bumped us up in the ranks in iTunes. It only takes a minute, and it's huge for getting the show in front of shooters like you and I. Just visit threegunshow.com/iTunes. If you like the show and you want to show your support, you can do so by using our affiliate link when you shop at Brownells. Just go to threegunshow.com/Brownells and shop like normal. We earn a small commission on what you buy at no additional cost to you, and it helps to cover the cost of hosting for the podcast. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'll catch you in the next episode.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.